how does someone with no real estate background find incredible success with notes? Stay tuned. Welcome to this week's edition of NoteSchool TV, where every week at 11:05 Central Time, we bring you, well, the most amazing guests, as well as the most amazing content. And again, this week is, more of the same, right? So thanks for being here. And a couple of things here before we get started today, and that's make sure and like this episode. Yep, please go ahead and just hit that. Also hit the subscribe button as well if you have not already done so. We have a 3.5-year library of NoteSchool TV episodes, and then also hit that bell notification. Boom, go ahead and hit it, and so that you'll be notified when we go live. Every Wednesday at 11:05 Central Time. Keep those comments coming. Eddie and I love to hear from you. We love to hear what you have to say about what's going on in your world, in your markets, and what you think of our episode. So if you would please continue to do that. And if you would like to hear more about what we do at NoteSchool, simply go to noteschool.com/TV. Again, noteschool.com/TV. With that, I want to introduce, NoteSchool's founder, our chief visionary officer, all-around good guy, my friend, Mr. Eddie Speed.
Hello, Joe.
How are you?
I'm very good. I really am. We are, as you've heard me say many times, we're very excited about this year. The inventory of notes is pretty drastically changed, the access to inventory that we've had. And so we're pretty dang busy with it. And watching the market that is definitely trending our direction.
You know, Eddie, we saw the momentum that hit in the fourth quarter of last year in our world. And then we had Note Expo, and it spiked up even more. And, Eddie, this first quarter is shaping up of 2024 is shaping up to be, it's pretty huge, right? A lot of things coming our way.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, let's talk about, this is an article. This is actually the New York Fed, right? And Wall Street. And here come the HELOCs, mortgage balances, delinquencies, and foreclosures. So, Eddie, if we look at this, we can see that this is the newly delinquent mortgages and HELOCs. And both are kind of ticking up just a little bit more. And, not the HELOCs, not as much as the mortgages, but still, they're ticking up, right?
They're both going in that direction, right?
Yes, that direction.
They're not going down.
That's right. So we have that. And then a couple of more interesting things here from Wall Street. So that's the newly delinquent. And then we see the serious delinquent, which is the stuff that is 90 days plus. And, HELOCs here have ticked down just a tiny bit, like 0.67. But the 90-day delinquencies on the mortgage side are continuing to rise on the 90-day plus side as well.
Well, we've talked about it a lot of how delinquent a mortgage is that enters into foreclosure.
Right.
And you're talking about in excess of 1,000 days. So a mortgage isn't slightly delinquent when the bank essentially decides to sell the loan and move down the pike.
That's right.
It's seriously delinquent. 1,014 days is the average delinquency when a loan hits foreclosure. And then we had Darren Bloomquist on, not long ago, and he's confirmed that. He's the data guy for auction.com.
Yeah.
They clearly have all that information. So definitely, delinquency is one thing that we watch, and we now are watching this new current trend of kind of 30-day delinquency. I think that is a reflection of something called affordability, Joe.
Well, there you go. But I want to. This is pretty interesting. This is the mortgage balances continue as far as the new mortgages. So here's the notes on that, right? So purchase of existing homes have plunged, right? Existing homes by 1/3. Mortgage origination volume has collapsed. So what's driving this, Eddie? What's driving this is new home sales.
Yeah.
Because of the incentives and so on that builders are having to give.
Yeah, definitely the case. New home sales are, you know, and we've discussed the new homes versus existing homes a lot, you know, so we're going to continue to see that. So, all right.
So
little snippets there, Joe.
Yep. Very good. And next week we are going to have our, monthly update. Can you believe it's that time again already?
Yeah, I know. No kidding.
We have a great guest today, Eddie. I am going to jump off and I am going to let you introduce him, and I'll see you towards the end of the show.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. All right. So our guest today is a guy that I've become very good friends with. I really respect him on not only as, you know, a smart, new trained investor, new in the last few years, but I respect him as a husband, as a father. He's a good guy. He is, which if you run a school like we do and you wish every person had the ethics and the focus on the right things in life, this guy has it. You guys welcome my friend, Mr. Wayne Garrett.
Hey, Eddie.
How you doing?
I'm great, Eddie. How are you?
I'm good.
Good to be here.
So, Wayne, you just have really a great story. You know, so many times people watch the show and they say, yeah, Eddie had some other ninja investor on there and they do 1,000 deals a year or some crazy. And we do have those guys, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But we also have the other end of the pendulum, which is we have somebody that's a smart person, has been very successful in something else in life. And all of a sudden they're like, they decide to jump the fence and do this. And I want to start this story out with like, what is originally your background and how you progress through some different things?
Sure. Okay. So originally my background was a W-2 engineer for 30 years. I worked for several different companies, kind of just working my way through, and got to a point where I was fed up with the corporate rat race. It was the same thing year in, year out. And I just knew I needed to do something different. I didn't know what it was, but I knew something different had to happen. And my wife was really a key part of helping me get there. She saw the stress I was dealing with every day, and she wanted to help me with that as well.
Yeah.
Back in 2019, we decided, hey, let's try to get into the real estate, the traditional real estate, because, well, that's what everybody does. That's the easiest thing to find information on when you go searching on different things, buying rental houses, fix and flips. That's all common stuff that everybody kind of goes to, right?
Yeah.
And we tried that path as well. Here's the problem.
So you hadn't done any real estate prior to 2019, other than own your own home.
Other than buy and sell my own home, no. And it really, even like most people, you don't truly understand all the stuff that's going on in the background when you finance your house.
Yeah.
You just know, did I get the loan or not?
Yeah.
So we're going down that path. The problem is, and we've talked about this before, I know how to run a spreadsheet. I know how to run a calculator. And when I started looking at rental houses and what would be a suitable house to purchase for our first rental, could never make the numbers work, because it's a very difficult to acquire that house, especially in DFW when you have all the competition for what the books tell you have to acquire the house for to cash flow, right?
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to do that. So then you're competing with all these other experienced investors that can pay more for the house, but they've already got other things locked down, like their reconstruction costs and all those different costs that go into it. They've already got a system worked out.
Yeah.
Well, it's very difficult for a new guy like me to go up against that and have success. So I started looking,
and it's a grind.
It is. It's a grind. And what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to create another hamster wheel. I didn't want to, being an engineer is a hamster wheel. And I didn't want to get off of one hamster wheel and just get on another one. Because as soon as you stop pedaling the hamster wheel, the money dries up, right? So I knew I wanted cash flow. And I knew that the rentals weren't penciling out the way they were supposed to. So what to do? All of a sudden, here comes an infomercial for Eddie Speed Note School. That drops into my inbox. And we were like, Note School. I'd heard something about notes. Couldn't quite wrap my head around all the principles of it. But I'd heard about it. And we decided to start. We went. And your lead funnel worked. It got us down through. We went to the, a 1-day class, then the 3-day.
Yeah. And
we realized, hey, this is actually something that we could get on board with. This we saw the vision. We saw the vision, and I like getting involved in what I call niches. And I think that note investing is a niche within the real estate world. Not a lot of people know about it.
That's true.
And it's something that if you get into it and you can get good at it and you can learn the business, you can make a lot of money at it. You can get the cash flow you want. You can have the lifestyle you want. There's a lot of opportunities in the note business with that.
All right. So I want to go back just a little bit.
Okay.
You were an engineer. You weren't a real estate guy. You'd been an engineer for a long time.
That's right.
And you made a decision. I want to change my life. Right. That's the first decision you made.
Right.
I want something different for my life. So the most common path, which was traditional real estate investing, far more well-known than note buying. You got down that road and it didn't lead you to where you thought you were going to get.
No, it didn't.
You found out it was competitive, and sometimes for somebody that's a true numbers guy like you are, the numbers weren't as lucrative as maybe they had been suggested.
Correct. Very much so.
So then all of a sudden you hear about notes. You come to Note School. What were you looking for when you came to Note School? Do you remember?
Well, what I'm thinking back, and this is just me thinking live in the moment, I was looking for freedom, kind of all the things that you said, and I would say freedom from an alternate path that I felt I could actually take a run at and be able to retire from my engineering job and do something different. My wife and I, we had this vision. Let's get Wayne out of what he's doing and allow him to focus full time on something. Because if you're just going to dabble in it, my idea was that timeline gets really long if you're just dabbling in any new venture, trying to make your side hustle. And some people do that, right? They make their side hustle their main hustle, but we wanted to kind of compress time. So we were looking for a way to have cash flow and have a clear path towards something different.
All right, let's talk about cash flow. Okay. Right? You and I commonly could make a statement that we totally know to be true, that notes have excessively more cash flow than rentals.
Yes.
Why is that true, Wayne?
Because you don't have all the expenses with a note that you do a rental house. You're not paying the taxes. You're not paying to replace the water heater or replacing a roof. And we've seen many times where one problem with the house can wipe out a whole year's worth of profit.
Yeah, the standard rule in the underwriting world, not necessarily what gurus say, but the real process, like, The industry standard is when you rent a house, about 50% of all of your rental income goes towards expenses. Now that's more than taxes and insurance, right? But
Oh yeah.
That's an acceptable standard that most people recognize that are seasoned. And when you think about having a note, well, you got to pay a servicer 20 to 30 bucks a month to service a loan if you don't want to touch it at all. And other than that, you don't have any expenses, do you?
Well, no. And Eddie, if you're fortunate enough to either create your own note or to buy a note that was written where the borrower pays a servicing fee, you don't even have the servicing fee to pay for.
That's right. Wayne, I want to ask you something. You have been intricately involved in NoteSchool. You see a lot of people come to NoteSchool that are really busy. They're not walked off their corporate job. And so they need note investing as a strategy, not as a business, right?
Right.
And I think we've addressed that well. And we have a lot of strategies that we help people do that. On the other hand, though, and somebody like you that said, I want to go reinvent myself, and this is my new 9 to 5, right? This is what I'm looking for as the new thing. And so the one thing I wanted to do, Wayne, is talk about like what you've seen with people that come to NoteSchool and because we have a lot of busy people that come to NoteSchool. We have a lot of people that have sold their rentals and owner financed them, right?
Yes.
Knowing they're going to get rid of the headache and get a lot more cash flow. I want to talk about that. Just what you've seen of people experience it. They had no idea they were going to experience it until they learned it. Let's talk about that.
Okay. Like you were saying, people come into NoteSchool, and I think everyone comes in with a certain vision, and their vision's different based on their background and their story. Take the person that has maybe 5-10 rental homes, and they catch that vision of, oh wow, I can get more cash flow if I turn this into a note, rather than continuing to mess with the house and do up.
They love managing those rentals, though, don't they, Wayne?
No, they never do. I've never met anybody that's been a landlord for very long that loves their rentals.
Yeah.
And loves dealing with tenants that won't pay and all the different things because evicting a tenant is a totally different situation than foreclosing on a borrower. Yeah. It's a completely different process.
Yeah, it's a really a lifestyle thing. So there's an argument, Wayne, and the argument is, well, if I sell my rental, I'm giving up my appreciation. You think that's true?
I don't think that's true, but it depends on how you look at the coin. If you look at the coin in the aspect of, oh, well, I have this hard asset, and if I sell it, I lose my appreciation. The thing we teach in NoteSchool is all the different ways that you can replace that appreciation. You convert your house and your rental into a note, selling a partial up front, getting that up front chunk of cash, different tax strategies that we use and show people where you don't have to pay tax.
You can at least double your income if you go from a rental to a seller finance note, right?
Right, just on a monthly basis.
Your income. So theoretically, are you not getting your appreciation now versus having to wait for it?
Yeah, that's another way of looking at it, for sure. Instead of just getting that big chunk that you're worried about paying taxes on. And I've seen people do that. I've seen people that are dead set on their rentals. They're not a part of NoteSchool. There are other people that are in my sphere, and they continue to do it the other way. And it just kind of looks like they're pounding their head against the wall. They don't realize it, but they kind of are.
If you ask NoteSchool's team, the number one thing that people say when they come to NoteSchool, they ask, like, what's a note? And how do I find them? And how do I evaluate? And they ask those questions. But like, if you really get down to the core question, the real thing that people want is, how do I build a portfolio? Right.
Right.
And so I want to talk about that a little bit, like what your observation has been, not just for yourself, but the other people within our Note School thing, like what that building a portfolio means.
Sure. So building a portfolio is obviously stacking multiple notes and stacking those principal and interest payments coming in. There's a couple of ways you have to attack that. You either have capital available to deploy, or you don't have capital available to deploy. And as you've said, then you have to bring something else to the table, which is hustle. You have to be willing to pick up the phone, to do things that may be outside of your comfort zone, to put together deals and broker a note and take a broker fee and slowly build. You did that, Eddie. You didn't start off with a big pile of money to go invest notes. You had to claw and fight your way through and build up that first amount of money to go purchase a note and then work from there.
Well, or you can go find people with passive money and they can help fuel your buying the notes, call it funding with other people's money, right? We've heard that.
Right.
And we've seen so many people that once we kind of show them how to go find them and what they're looking for and how to position it, they're like, well, it's not near as hard as I thought it was. Like, well, okay, everything's hard until you understand it, right, Wayne?
It is. Everything seems hard. Notes seemed hard until you start understanding it.
That's why we built a school, isn't it? Right? That's why Note School exists.
Yeah, exactly.
Is to go help people understand what otherwise they wouldn't. So, now that we refer to it in this way, you're like, that's not hard at all. I mean, think about, Wayne, you're an engineer. Like, rehabbing a house is pretty complex, isn't it?
It is. It's not something that you just dive off into because you watched a TV show, for sure, or you should.
Oh, really? It's more complex than his own TV.
Yeah, because the cameras aren't running 24/7, Eddie. They're only on for 5 minutes here and there. They don't capture the whole process.
So the thing is, I would say, Wayne, I believe this to be a truth. I believe that building a note portfolio is really, really a lot easier than building a portfolio of real estate. Do you think that's a truth?
I think that's a truth. That's been a truth for me, for sure.
You know what else it accomplishes? Freedom in your mind. Because if you're dealing with problems all the time, it's not freeing. And managing rentals is dealing with problems. You said it. Nobody ever shows up on our Note School platform that's had rentals that says, man, I just really love dealing with all of the things that I get to do dealing with rental property. Nobody ever says it that way, right, Wade?
No, I've never heard that.
So that's the idea is, and so the reason I think you're so encouraging today, Wayne, is yes, we've had people on the show and they've done 1,000 deals and this and that, and that's all cool. But the truth of the matter is you had done 0 real estate deals.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you tried real estate. I like a statement you said earlier, not on the interview, but you just said it earlier. I thought this was really clever. You said you wanted to be more than just one guy of 1,000 people standing fishing in the same spot. That made a lot of that resonated with me. That made a lot of sense that you said, look, I want to know that I have something that I'm not having to fight my way to find the one deal. And because that's how real estate felt to you. You felt like you were fighting everybody else.
Well, yeah. And I literally was. You show up to a house to bid on a house and there's 15, 20 other investors right there with you. And when you're new, well, good luck. You're going to have to keep taking a few swings before you start having some success. Whereas with notes, I found it much easier to find success. And I think the sooner you can find success, then the sooner you are on a path to get where you're really wanting to go.
One last question. What's your why?
My why has changed, Eddie. I've realized I had a why in the beginning, which was freedom. Like I mentioned, getting out of the W-2 and going down that path. And I've gotten there. So I think your why can adjust as your journey progresses, right?
Mm-hmm.
My why today is, as I look at my 12-year-old son, and I was raised in a home where my dad was a blue-collar factory worker, worked very hard. So for me, becoming an engineer was a huge accomplishment. Going to school, getting a degree, becoming an engineer, big accomplishment. I felt like I had made it when I was young in life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking now at my son. I'm looking at how the world is unfolding for him. And I want him to have the freedom of being an entrepreneur. I want him to have the freedom of knowing you don't have to just work some W-2 job. You can actually get out and network and hustle, make friends, and be able to do business in a much more fun, entertaining way. Because a big part of NoteSchool also, Eddie, is the network of people, the experience of people. And so my why has changed. Now it's teaching this to my son and letting him see me progress, because you know as well as I do, your children watch what you do.
They do.
They watch very closely. And he asks lots of questions about, what am I doing? And I explain it to him. And I explain it in pretty simple mathematical terms, but he gets it. I can actually show him, I've showed him an amortization table. And look at how much interest this is. This is all profit coming into us every month. And his eyes get all big. He's like, wow. So he has an interest in it. So that's my why.
I think that's a great why. Obviously, I raised my kids up in the business, and so some of the same thoughts and some of the same experiences. And it's funny, like when you find something that's the right thing, now all of a sudden you want your kids to inherit that. You want your kids to inherit that dream is possible for them too. And I always say that, do you own a business that you would want your kids to inherit? Mm-hmm. And I'm honored to say that the note business is one of those great businesses that you would want your kids to inherit.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Not a business that sucks the life out of them, right?
No, it is not.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Joe.
Well, it is kind of hard to top that, Wayne. You pretty much said it all there. And, one of the other things that occurred to me there is that, Wayne, I think that every young person, whether it's male or female, daughter, son, whatever it is, that sees their dad have a bunch of rentals as they're growing up, they see the pain and all the missed things that, dad or mom and mom had to miss because of that. And they see that and they go, no, I don't ever want to do that.
Yeah.
And that's why seeing and teaching, well, it just becomes a part of it. And that's why we've been doing this at NoteSchool for what, Eddie? About 23 years now? Going on long time.
Wayne, you were excellent. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for sharing. It means a lot to our audience to get to hear someone's life story, and yours is so transparent and so genuine. We're honored to have you.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you, Wayne. And guys, thanks so much for being with us today. We appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Same place, same time. When 11:05 Central Time on Wednesdays, and we will be we'll have our monthly update. A lot of great things to come on that. We've been working and scrubbing and putting that together as well. So we'll see you next week. Take care.